Musician, songwriter, producer. Senegalese-American artist Akon has sold over 35 million records worldwide. He's probably best known for hit songs like Locked Up, Don't Matter, and collaborations with some of the biggest names in music, Michael Jackson, David Guetta, and Lady Gaga, to name just a few. But Akon is also an activist, a philanthropist.
Hands up high, peace signs up high!
He devotes a lot of time to promoting peace in conflict zones like the Democratic Republic of Congo.
I wanna be free, I wanna be free.
And a lot of money on an ambitious project to improve the quality of life of 1 million Africans by bringing them electricity. He's doing good, but making money at the same time. But there is also controversy about his lyrics and performance style. We caught up with Akon in Dubai. He talks music, business, and being an African in America. Akon talks to Aljazeera. Akon, thank you so much for talking to Aljazeera.
No, absolutely.
Now, very few artists are able to take their celebrity and build it into a brand that goes far beyond the art, the music in your case. Now, you seem to be succeeding in doing just this. What's the secret?
Well, it's not really a secret. I mean, you got to be a businessman first. You know, this is the music business. Some people, more relating to artists, they exclude the business and they have other people that run it. But ultimately, when I create musically, I figure out how is that music can be maximized in a way to.
So are you then a businessman first and then a musician second?
Yeah, I started off as a hustler, so I'm first businessman, then a musician,
Right.
for sure.
You've got quite a lot going on: a clothing line, nightclubs, investments in Africa, a diamond mine, even I hear in South Africa. What is this? Is this like social capitalism? I mean, you are making money, obviously. What do you say to people who say, oh, this is all just, you know, a way for Akon to make money? It's not really...
It is a way for me to make money.
So
it's clearly a business.
It's a business.
Yeah, do not get it twisted. It's a real business. It's just ultimately at the stage where I'm at now, I only want to get into business that's going to help people. It's going to change lives. It's going to make a difference. Because I can be an artist and just, you know, be on stage and do endorsements and just make money, literally. But I'm in a position where I'm gifted in a place where I've been offered opportunities where I can make a difference and change lives. So why not make money and change lives at the same time?
Social capitalism, then.
Basically, yeah.
Okay. Well, let's talk a bit more about your Africa-focused ventures. I want to start off with Akon Lighting Africa. What's been achieved?
We actually overachieved. We're beyond 1 million households now. We're actually in 14 countries. We started with just creating solar energy for rural areas and house homes, and then now we're doing solar street lamps all through countries, and also incorporating it within each country. We're putting solar in all the villages, and we're also creating a system to where we're actually employing all the locals to be able to maintain it and also, you know, keep everything pretty much in order.
But I mean, you have to acknowledge that it's a huge challenge to bring electricity to Africa. I mean, 5 million people don't have power, and only 1% of private sector investments actually go to Africa. And you know, I wonder, when you say you're in 14 countries, how many people have you actually reached?
Like, for instance, Guinea-Conakry, for instance, right? We're in Guinea-Conakry. We have 30,000 street lamps there, and it's all solar. These are areas where you couldn't even drive or even walk out at night. So you wouldn't even have a clue where you're going. So all those areas and people in that path, it's actually affecting. And then we also have over 100,000 home systems in selected villages in those areas, and we're still expanding in those areas, and that's just one country.
And I wonder, how was the initiative received by the different African governments in Guinea, Senegal? I mean, because these are governments that are often criticized for not doing enough. You know, when it comes to electricity, I mean, President Macky Sall in Senegal was heavily criticized when he started. Did they welcome your initiative?
I think every single country was a little specifically suspicious. because they was like, okay, he's a music guy. What is he doing in energy? You know, so it was always that. But we came fully prepared for all, answers to every question. And we also came prepared to execute. So we didn't come into these countries with an idea. We already put together full team, full infrastructure. So from the moment we came in creating pilots. We didn't even ask the country for any money. We put up our own money in the beginning and allowed the presidents to choose.
How much money are we talking?
Well, it depends on the pilot, but we allowed them to choose the village that they would want electrified first, just to give them a scope of work, how we work, and so on and so forth. And ultimately, after that, they were all in full belief, and then we continued and did the whole country afterwards. Yeah.
But how much money, again, did you invest in this particular project?
Collectively, I don't have all the accounting, but per village, it could range from 100,000 to 250,000 just for a pilot.
There's Akon Lighting Africa. You've also joined the non-profit organization Peace One Day with a huge concert in Goma in the east of the DRC earlier this year. Tell us about that experience. What's the objective?
Well, with Peace One Day, it's really a huge event that just promotes peace. It's that one day in the year where you just ask yourself, who do I want to make peace with? We oftentimes are conflicted and no one's communicating. Like, you could be mad at me for a whole year and a half and we haven't even spoke. And sometimes, a lot of times, it's just all miscommunication. So Peace One Day is that moment that we try to create annually that can create that moment for people to communicate.
What was it like to perform at the airport in Goma?
No, listen, just putting that concert together, I mean, it was a whole year of preparation. And we couldn't find a venue big enough to do it. And we ultimately, reached out to the government and see if we can take the airport, the runway of the airport, because that was the only place where we can create a concert that would allow so many people there. And it was just an experience. I mean, it was amazing. Very, very well.
But Akon, once the concert is over, these people in Goma go back to their daily lives of hardship, of war, because that's the reality for them. War. That's what they've known.
War is a choice. War is a choice. See, the thing is this, right? Everyone has to go back to their daily lives, but they won't go back to their daily lives with the same mind state they walked into it with.
But who's going to war? I mean, it's not the people who came to see your concert. They're the victims. So who should your message really be addressed to?
The thing is this. A war can only happen if it's supported by the people. I mean, it's simple. It's people that carry guns and shoot. You're a person. Like, these are people that do it. So they have to be the one to make that difference and that change. And they have to say, you know what, I'm not doing this.
What difference do you think it's made for the people of Goma?
I mean, if I could save one life in a year that was meant to not be here, I think it's a difference made. So when you take a whole day of no guns, no firepower, no bombs, no nothing, it's just straight peace. You know how many lives were saved that day? It was a lot. It may not be, to people's standards as a difference made, but to me, one life, gone is a difference made.
It's been a very busy year for you. In addition to Peace One Day, there's also the Silent Campaign for Ebola, which was launched by the One Campaign, right? I mean, we saw several artists, Bono, Pew, Angelique Kidjo, Femi Kuti, just to name a few African artists, take part in this Silent Campaign that's urging basically governments to do more in the fight against Ebola. I'm almost tempted to say, this is a cynical voice in me, there you go again, Africa needing help from foreigners.
Absolutely. I think it's a issue that Africa has to face as well too, and I think we play a huge role. We just have to rebrand our continent, because when you look at, prime example, just the Ebola crisis in general, a lot of it stemmed in certain parts of Africa, and yes, it has to be contained in so many ways, but in a lot of ways, I think it's been overly exaggerated so much to where it's going to really affect Africa's economy in the future.
What has been over-exaggerated?
The Ebola crisis. I mean, think about it. Malaria has killed more people than Ebola. Really, but the way the media has portrayed this thing, and when you look at it, it's 1 billion and change of people in Africa. It's a couple of thousand people that's been affected, which is less than 0.1% of anyone getting touched or affected, but the fear of it is so strong that people wouldn't even want to travel to Africa because of that. And that affects Africa's economy, it affects its future, it affects the business.
What do you think of these Western charity songs as a response to African emergencies?
I mean, honestly, you want to applaud anyone that wants to do something great for a cause. And I'm sure everyone that's doing it has nothing but great intentions towards it. But the question is, once it's done, what is the action being taken afterwards? Because it's the same amount of people that's still infected. Actually, it's more now than it was before all this money raised. And it's only a few thousand people. So why isn't anything
What do
happening?
you think is happening to the money that's raised?
Use your common sense. It's not going to Africa.
Where is it going?
Honestly, if I knew that question, I would definitely expose it, but I don't. I don't know where it's going.
Well, you know, the reason I asked about what you thought about all these Western musicians and so on, because there's a paternalistic view that still exists today, and this is like decades after colonialism and so on, that Africa still must be saved
Yeah.
by the West.
Well, actually, honestly, believe it or not, that's actually true. But I don't think the word save is the right word for Africa. Because Africa, to an extent, has been the anchor to the rest of the world. Every natural resource that's keeping every country in the world operating is resources that's been pulled from Africa. Everyone benefits but Africa. So Africa doesn't need to be saved. Africa's the one doing the saving.
Akon, you've said, if I could have my way, Africa would be the United States of Africa with just one leader. Of course,
100%.
Marcus Garvey wrote a poem about this. Bob Marley sung about this. Muammar Gaddafi, the Libyan leader, poured his wealth into this idea of a United States of Africa. But really, is it, when you look at Africa today, a continent of over 1 billion people, over 2,000 different languages, is it realistic?
Well, first of all, I think it has to be our generation and the generation that come after us to achieve it. I don't think this generation would ever be able to achieve it because there's too much history and it's too much built up into where it started today. It has to be set from a generation that's clear from the history, clear from conflict, and see it, the world in the way that we see it. The only way Africa can evolve in that way is that we have to be united. There has to be a united Africa. It has to be one Africa. It can't be so many countries with so many leaders, so many opinions. You know, all those countries, I think, should be broken down into basically states. And there should be one president, and he or she should be democratically elected by all Africans to do what's best for Africa.
But I mean, in just one country already, it's so difficult to have a democratic election. How do you have a democratic election in a so-called United States of Africa? How do you do that?
It's not hard. I mean, listen, if China can do it, and they don't even have a democratic election.
So maybe what? So
You know what I mean?
maybe what democracy is something
No,
that Africa
I mean,
doesn't
in
need.
Africa,
maybe
there
it
has
has
to
to be another
elections.
form of rule.
There has to be elections. If you want to keep Africa stable, there has to be elections. All we need is Africans to be able to govern themselves. What's stopping Africa from governing themselves now and creating that one Africa is that there's still foreigners in certain areas that still control Africa. You know, prime example,
The former colonial
the Francophone
powers, right?
companies, Francophone countries. If the French just get out the way, we can really be okay. But a lot of the wars is set up from influences.
Are you interested in getting into politics one day?
Absolutely not. Hell no.
Why is that? I mean, you have all these great ideas, but
Listen,
not interested.
I would prefer to be the guy standing next to the president. I would never want to be a president.
Akon, you're considered a first-generation American. Your parents are African. You were born in the United States, but spent your early childhood in Senegal and then moved back to the United States. What do you consider yourself today? Are you American? Are you African? Are you African American? What are you?
I'm an African raised in America. You know, clearly.
So you're not American,
I wish I was, but my mind is not African. I mean, American. It's clearly African.
but you have the accent. You have,
I went to school in America. All my whole earlier childhood, I was raised in Africa. Then I came to America. Every summer, we would go back to Africa for a vacation. And then when I graduated high school, it was a choice whether we wanted to go to Africa or stay in the U.S. And just the opportunities in the U.S. were so much greater than Africa.
Well, you're certainly the perfect example of the American dream coming true.
Well, thank you.
Millions of Africans who make it to the States and who don't, you know, have the same success and the same luck as you have. And what would be your advice to a young African who's immigrating to the United States today?
Well, I think this advice will go to any person migrating into the States. Ultimately, you can't change who you are. And I think the biggest obstacle is that when people come to the U.S., they kind of alienate their original personalities, way of lives, and they conform to what's there. And when you do that, first of all, you will never get accepted.
But isn't that the best way to integrate?
Absolutely not, because first of all, you can't, it's no way you can move forward and you're not you. Like, one thing I do notice about America is that they respect other cultures. They actually admire other cultures very much. So when they can see the difference in who you are, their attitude towards you is completely different as well too. But if you're walking into me and I know you're a foreigner, but you're acting like an American, you just seem fake. It's not genuine. So the respect level is completely different. But if I walk up to you as an American and you're clearly an African or Asian, that makes me more curious about who you are. I ask more questions. I'm now more, I'm more intuitive about what this is. I get more motivated to want to learn more about it. And then the respect level is different because now you're teaching me something. You follow?
So when you're in the States, you're proud to say you're African?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, clearly African.
Right. You once told the Source magazine, and I want to quote this, "Black people in the U.S. can nag all they want how the system is against black people, but if they saw how other people lived in Africa, they would see how blessed they really are." Do you still believe this today when you see unarmed black teenagers being killed by the police, when you see protests in St. Louis, in Missouri, where you lived for a long time, when you see people taking to the streets in Atlanta and New York to denounce police brutality against young African American men? Do you think the system really is for these people?
Well, the system was never for them.
So what made you say this to
Because
Source magazine?
when I said that, I was talking about the environment and where they live and the rights that they actually have and the blessing that they do, have actual access to. In Africa, the way I grew up, let's just pick a project in New York, for instance. That's a 5-star hotel compared to the environment I came up in. Like, if they see how they live, they actually get money from the government. They actually are programs that helps the impoverished and the poor, and you get food stamps, and they have it good compared to Africa. You follow? There's a huge difference in how the government allocate funds towards poor and how the government allocates funds towards poor in Africa. The environments are not even left and right. If these guys were able to be taken from where the environment they're in now to the same equal environment in Africa, they would be crying to come back home to America.
But you say now that the system is against them.
Now let's get to the system.
Yes, through the
I was
system.
talking about way of life.
Right.
Now, as far as the system in America was never built for black people. And this is my personal opinion. I'm speaking for myself. I don't believe it was never built for black people because that system has never been changed. Those documents has never been altered. These things were made back in the 1800s, and these are the same exact literature that's down today. So mind you, at the time it was made, black people was never in a position where they were, looked at as equal. So if it's the same documents that they're applying today in 2014, it wasn't meant for them.
What was it like growing up as a black man in America?
Well, in America it was a little different because I was a foreigner. I was African and I was very dark skinned. And at the time, dark skin wasn't really in style, so I was always getting picked on in school.
But you were in trouble a lot.
That's what got me in trouble. It was frustration.
What got you in trouble?
Just the way I felt. I felt I was being mistreated and unfairly judged because I was African. So I was always in fights. And
you spent time in jail?
I spent some time in jail. Collectively about 3 years, but my longest bid was about 6 months.
What for?
Stealing cars and hustling. Yeah. So
again, what was it like then? I mean, when you see Ferguson, Missouri today, and you hear of Michael Brown and Eric Garner and so on. Do you sympathize? Do you understand that experience that these people are denouncing today?
I clearly understand the frustration. What I don't understand is that how, like, if I'm in a position of where they are, and I don't want to speak too much from them because I think I may have some knowledge that they may not quite have, right? Because I've been in a position where I've experienced Africa and I've experienced the United States. I always felt like Africa was for Africans. So when I see African Americans in America dealing with all these issues, my first question is, why don't they just go back home?
Where?
Back to Africa. Will they be treated fair? Will they actually be praised for who they are because of the fact that they're American? They'll get way better treatment. They can invest their money
But come
back
on,
home.
Akon, how do you tell people who've lived for generations, centuries and centuries in one land to move back to a place they don't know? I mean,
no, but that's my point. They
Right.
don't know. It starts with a visit. How many African Americans do you know actually consider Africa as a vacation spot? Not one. When you look at the overall population of African Americans, a very few percentage would decide to go to Africa for vacation. Would even, just for knowledge, just to know where they come from, just to get an idea of what that is. It's so much fear installed into them that they wouldn't even want to even go there to visit. You mentioned Africa, they start shaking.
I want to talk about women and your view of women.
I love women.
When you sing about them, they're called sexy chicks, and this is a clean version, of course.
Yeah, without being disrespectful. That's
Without
the best,
being
that's the only word
disrespectful.
I can use to describe
But
it.
yeah,
Yes.
sexy chicks.
Nice.
There's the infamous incident, of course, in Trinidad in 2007, where you were dancing very suggestively, to say the least, with a teenage
Dirty
girl.
whining.
Yeah. And I know this is not just you. I mean, in hip hop in general, women are called, names and so
It's just
on.
a
But
figure of
I know, but I
speech,
wonder. It's
though,
just
like-
a figure of speech. But I wonder, Akon, can dehumanizing women be passed off as entertainment?
Well, I wouldn't call it dehumanizing. Like the women themselves call each other bitches more than we do as men. Like right now,
Really?
I promise you, if I was sitting and listen to a female conversation, they'd be like, "Bitch, you so crazy, girl." But it's just a figure of speech. I just think some people are just so uptight that they don't just embrace personality. Like, this is just loosen up.
So what do you respond to people who say that you don't respect women?
Nah, honestly, they clearly don't know me. There's not a woman in my life that will sit here and tell you that I don't respect women.
But you've urged women also to consider polygamy. You think a man should have several women in his
Well, that
house?
depends on the culture you follow. I came from a different environment where you can marry more than one wife,
Let's talk about music, because your fans won't forgive me if we don't talk about Akon and the music and, the next album. It's been 6 years, Akon. What's happening? Are you too busy building other people's careers to make your own music now?
Well, I built my career off building other people's careers. I always loved the art of collaboration because I felt like with collaboration, you can always, expand the art. They teach me something, I learn something. I teach them something, they learn something. And then not only that, but you create a synergy of music that people haven't heard or a combination that people don't expect. And I always thought that made music more interesting,
All right, but when's the next album? Again, it's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a minute. It's been a minute.
So?
It's been a minute. So 215, for sure, this album is definitely coming out.
And what's it going to sound like? Because, some of your fans that I've been speaking to say, we miss the original Akon, the 2006 convict Akon with the hip-hop
Exactly.
sound. Now it's all about dance. It's all about, club music and so on. What's happened? Is this an attempt, to be more commercial?
No, I think me as an artist, I just grow. I've been growing, and I've been growing real fast. And now that I've been traveling, I've been growing even more. But one thing I did learn is exactly what you said. There's a lot of fans that's all have their own favorite part of Akon's growth. So this new album is set up to where you give each audience their own focus point. So that's why the album is broken up into 4 parts. It's called Stadium, and then you have the Urban Stadium, which will give you all the street records that you loved from me in the earlier part. And then you have the Afro Stadium, which is all the African type music that my audience in the States probably have never even heard. Then I have the International Stadium, which gives you more of the international, global, world music sound. And then I have the Euro Stadium, which is all the dance type of music and records. So they're broken up into 4 parts. There's going to be 6 songs and a 7 bonus track on each one of them. And then you can purchase it all together as a package, or you can pick just the genre that you desire when it comes to Akon.
Well, I can't wait to hear it. Thank you so very much for speaking to us, Akon. Thank you.
You got it.